And Janet.
And Janet.
Uh-huh.
How was Michael different from all of those other artists?
Michael was different from every other artist that I worked with in that his approach to the process was just very unique. And, you know, aside from his tremendous skill as a performer, dancer, singer, songwriter, creator, the environment in which he created really spoke to the level of expectation and artistry that was going on in those rooms. And I think that it was key in the success of the projects over the years.
What was the day-to-day process like with him creating that?
Okay, well, our day-to-day process was different each day. Depending on what time we start, because of his hectic schedule, we would break a sweat very quickly, you know, and then get into the ideas. You know, this after having had our, you know, sort of brain process conceptually, you know, but when we actually got on our feet, as he would say, it was a lot of repetition, you know. He believed that muscle memory is part of it, so that the muscles need to know what's happening. So you need to be able to do this dance and think about what you're gonna have for lunch tomorrow. You know, we needed to know it that well. So there was a lot of repetition and a lot of practicing, you know, and a lot of versions. You know, we get to a point where we felt like, all right, this version is very cool. Now, let's tape it, move on. Let's create another version. That may happen 4 or 5 times. And then you pull the best parts from each version, and then you put that into a hero version 1. And then you change hero version 1. So it was a process, you know, to come up with what the ultimate ideas would be. And Michael was very clear that the best idea just needed to be found. It didn't always have to come from him, but it needed to be found. So, you know, as a creative, that was a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility, you know, but as one who'd always grown up admiring his excellence, it was a welcome challenge, you know, and, you know, to be able to be at Neverland for periods of time and just be immersed in the creative process, that doesn't happen. You know, most times a person hires you to work this number of days for this number of hours per day. This is the release date for the project, done. With Michael, his process continued because he felt like, I asked him one time which is his favorite song, and he said it's impossible to choose one. They're like his children. They all are important. So if you think in terms of that kind of thought, the songs continued. You know, they were all a work in progress. And, you know that you are just weaving something that is going to endure, you know, and film was very important to him. You know, he says it doesn't matter unless it was captured and the future generations can see it, you know, and be inspired by it. So, you know, all of his sort of ideals and strategy in his process have had a lasting effect on me. You know, one of my favorite things about Michael was that every time you saw him, for the next time, it was really a continuation of the previous time. You know, there wasn't a lot of, you know, tiptoeing around him, you know, especially if we're working. You know, he wanted to know the truth. He would say oftentimes, don't think about it, tell me what you feel, because if you think about it, there's a chance you'll be acting and you'll be telling me what you think I need to hear. This work is so important that we have to be completely transparent and honest with each other. And we did that. And that was so refreshing and empowering as a collaborator, because a lot of times with stars, you know, they have very fragile egos, you know, and I think that, you know, yeah, Michael had his moments of sensitivity, but his work was really part of his purpose for being on the planet, and he knew that. So he approached every opportunity as if it were the most important of his career. So it set a precedent in the way we communicated and created that's unlike any other process I've ever had. During the creation process for This Is It, Michael coined a phrase that he would say all the time. And, you know, he would say, "I'm not playing with these people." And I took that to mean that the responsibility of that show in particular was so great. It was Michael's return to the stage after a 15-year absence. And, you know, it was a platform with which he would remind the world of all of the messages that have been in his songs and his art for decades, which really sort of revolve around world peace and unity and tolerance. And, you know, it was a little mantra that he came up with, you know, to further sort of punctuate the importance of the moment. So from time to time, he would just say something and he'd say, "I'm not playing with these people." Like, this was it. You know, this was really another defining moment in his artistic career and existence that was so very important to him that all of it was serious. You know, it was really the culmination of his life's work. And it was, to be clear, for everybody who was on the journey with him, that it was serious. You know, yeah, we were gonna have fun and we were gonna celebrate, we were gonna have a good time, and, you know, all of those things that are just sort of built into that kind of experience. But the work really was so important that he would say that all the time during the day. And, you know, when I think about it now, you know, I know what he meant. You know, he was doing this. This was a big thing, you know, and he was a father now. And so he had a totally different perception of himself and what it was he was doing as an artist. And, you know, all of those things played into his daily routine throughout our rehearsals and the creative process, and, you know, and ultimately the onstage rehearsals. So it was a very special time, very, very special.
So it sounds like he was strong and ready for the show, compared to, or contrary to what, you know, some of the reports or the news.
Right, right. I mean, always with Michael, you never can believe exactly what you hear, you know, conveyed in the press, because so much of it was for sensationalism and to sell papers, and that was unfortunate. You know, that's a result of, you know, sort of where our society has taken us with the media. But as a person who was there with him and went through 2 other creative processes like This Is It with him, he was absolutely ready to do the shows. He was very strong in that he knew what his business was. And every day at rehearsal, we were just so honored to be in the process with him.
Was Michael ready for the show?
Michael was definitely ready for This Is It. It was his, you know, his obsession, you know, for the months before, if not years before. And it was really to be his great return to the stage and his ability and platform to remind people of the messages of hope and positivity and tolerance and humanity that have been threaded through his art for decades. And, you know, just seeing how driven he was about it every day and looking into his eyes and seeing the importance of the entire moment to him and what it means to him and his family, his children, you know, being a father, you know, at that time, and, you know, his children having never seen him perform live, and this being the experience for him to really share, you know, his life's passion with them, you know, in a live setting, were just a few of the things that made This Is It such an important step in Michael's legacy and career. And fortunately, his fans and friends got to see a lot of his work in the film documentary. But of course, it was nothing like what the show was going to be. And, you know, one person said that This Is It was the greatest show that never happened. And I believe that. I think that having gotten a tour with Michael on Dangerous in History and all of the projects in between, and then seeing the Michael who showed up to rehearse for This Is It and create it, I saw his immense growth as an artist and as a human, and how the condition of the world and his perception of what his responsibility to the planet was really drove a lot of what he was doing, you know, and the journey he took us all on. Michael taught me so much. He taught me about the art of the creative process, taught me about having the art have a greater purpose and serve a greater purpose. For him, it was his humanitarian efforts, you know, and shining a light on certain problems that we have in society. And he taught me about, you know, just being kind and doing your best to have everything come from a loving place, although it's hard sometimes. But the fact is that, you know, we are much stronger united than we are divided. And he would take iconic sort of ideas like the military and armies, and he would say things like, you know, look at the strength and the power in that. What if it all for good? What if it all served a positive purpose? You know, what if it was all strength and joyous and celebratory, as opposed to always so dark and so much bloodshed? And that kind of thinking was always front and center with him. He would be so incredibly moved by stories on the news about displaced people, or, you know, folks who are suffering in any particular region. He didn't know these people, but if the TV was playing in the studio and he just saw, you know, something on the news and it touched him in a way, like it would stop rehearsal. Like he was that sensitive and in tune to other people's problems. And I think that, you know, that also allowed him to write such beautiful songs, you know, because I think he would call on these, you know, memories or experiences that he had and translate them into just really, really poignant art. And he also told me that he thought one of his greatest gifts was being able to tap into his higher power and realize that he is a vessel through which the art comes, and that he didn't really take credit for the things he created and that I had the pleasure of creating with him, but it always came from this higher place. And that was really heavy, you know, when he told me that. And it really put a lot of things in perspective for me.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.